Hey, folks, welcome back to Truth Wanted. And if you're watching this live on TikTok, that's because we are simultaneously casting to YouTube and TikTok today. So come join the stream. We're going to be talking about conspiracy theories, out there ideas, all kinds of stuff, all that and more on today's episode of Truth Wanted. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you'd like to call us, you can do that at 512-991-9242, or for the first time ever in Truth Wanted's history and history of any of the ACA shows, you can now join us live through TikTok. That's right, folks. If you are watching this through the TikTok app and are seeing this show happen, you can come in and join. We're going to ask you if you're 18 or over, and then we'll just get straight to it, just like we do with any of our other callers. So come on in, click that join button if you want to join in on this stream today, and we'll get it going, folks. This is Truth Wanted, a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, folks, always have a special guest with me. Returning tonight is Coleman Watts. Coleman, welcome back to Truth Wanted. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks, Dan. I'm in the mood to talk about some weird shit.
Hell yeah. That's what I like to hear, baby. It's Friday night. You already know. So again,
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Big shout out to our viewers on TikTok tonight, of course, and YouTube mobile as well. Again, hit that request to join the stage if you want to do it, or if you want to call in the regular way, you can do that. Number for that is at the bottom of the screen. And we'll get started in a bit. But of course, you know, we always like to chat just a little bit as we're waiting for folks to call in to get things started. Normally, folks, we do a We Want the Truth segment. We have had a tumultuous week at the Atheist Community of Austin last week. We did not get to the truth, the We Want the Truth segment. We will not be reading questions. So folks who submitted answers last time, we will read off those answers for next time. But for now, we're just chatting today. We're just getting to it. Again, I am joined by Coleman Watts today. Coleman, for those who hadn't seen your previous episode, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, hey, so I'm Coleman. I'm the host of Think This Through channel on YouTube. And on my channel, I talk about weird stuff. I talk about fringe beliefs and debunk cons and cults and conspiracies and whatever strange stuff is happening. I want to talk about it.
Yes, I also like to talk about those things, which makes us great companions for this show today. Very glad you're joining us again. I enjoyed you last time you were on here, and I think we're going to have another good episode today. There's been a lot of things happening, a lot of stuff. We're now in a war now, between now and last week. So that's the reality we live in.
It is an epic battle to distract us from the Epstein files, I think.
Yeah, you know, that's an idea that's been floating around as well.
Some conspiracists might say.
Some conspiracists might say. A lot of other folks say, of course, that, you know, every time a certain kind of person is in office, that we seem to go to war in the Middle East. You know, it seems to be cyclical in nature. So I don't know. Maybe this is all a one world government sort of distraction from the Epstein files, right? When's the last time you heard about one world government stuff? I feel like that's been on the back burner.
Or the deep state. Like
the deep state.
Is the deep state directing this war in Iran?
Right. Here's an idea that's been driving me crazy. I alluded to this before we got started with the show, but you know, QAnon, there's this narrative going around that, oh guys, QAnon was right. Look at all the Epstein file stuff. Look, QAnon, he was on top of it. He was on top of the chocolate. QAnon said that the rich were getting adrenochrome from children in underground bunkers. Like, it's
Yeah.
not
That
really the same thing,
did
I would
not
say.
say Jeffrey Epstein's island, right?
Yeah,
It was supposed to be a pizza parlor. It
right.
it was not. Yeah, it
Yeah,
there's a retcon version of it, right? That
right.
can be made to sound like they got something right. But you can retcon any conspiracy theory. You can,
Mm,
I mean, that was the whole idea behind the prophecies of Nostradamus, right? Like
yeah.
he made these vague statements in a book that don't really make a whole lot of sense, but you can retcon it into any world event and be like, Nostradamus predicted this because he said there was going to be light in the sky, and look, there is.
Right. Yeah, yeah. The Nostradamus stuff drives me crazy because I'm sure you've read it, right? If you actually read it, it's just poetry. It sounds like poetry. It doesn't even sound like it's describing things happening in real life half the time. It's just like these crazy chaotic imagery. But yeah, QAnon stuff was the same thing. It was the most biggest vague posting you've ever seen. And then they're like, oh, this has to mean this and this has to mean that. I'm
Yes.
like,
There
you know,
were there
yeah,
was a whole career that people made out of interpreting these Q drops,
right.
that because they didn't make any sense, and so you had to make sense of them. You needed a clergy to interpret the word,
It's
right?
true. It's true. And then, of course, what was the slogan? Trust the plan. What was
Yes.
the plan? To let
Trust the
Jeffrey
plan.
Epstein go to prison and then off himself? Was that the plan? Or get killed potentially?
Is is the war in Iran part of the plan now? Because originally it was
Mm,
not part of the plan. So
right.
what is this plan? Who made this plan anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, Ron Watkins is the alleged,
Yeah,
owner
pig farmer.
of the QAnon sort of conspiracy, or at least took it upon himself to monopolize on it. Crazy how big that was, right? Like Michael Flynn and some of these other guys were talking about it, and I don't know. It feels like it's fallen on the back burner, but there's definitely still Q folks out there, which is sad to see. Um,
Well, because the thing about, people who are in deep with this sort of thing, and it's true of cults, it's true of any sort of kind of cohesive group think like this, is that it never like, it's not that all of the QAnon people just decided to admit that they were wrong,
no,
right? It's not like they all decided to figure out that they were actually mistaken, and they were going to rededicate their lives to critical thinking, and they were going to change their ways. No, that did not happen,
never,
right?
never.
So what happened was, you've got all these people who believed in QAnon and were really they were marching in the streets and stuff,
Right,
and and now those same people are still out there. They've just like they've got a new bone,
right.
right? Or they've gotten, they're the ADD kids that have just gotten distracted with the new shiny object. But
Yeah.
it's not like they learned anything from being wrong in the past.
No, no, no. I mean, so it's rare that I speculate on individual psychology because one, I'm not qualified, and two, I think people do these overreaching statements about this kind of stuff all the time. But there is this idea that was explained to me one time about QAnon folks, which applies to some conspiracy thinking folks in general. But there is a sort of narcissism that goes into these ideas. There's a kind of narcissistic personality that likes and picks up on these kinds of ideas. And, it's this kind of stuff we talked about before, this idea of secret individual knowledge that can make you more enlightened or more aware than the average person around you. There's also this idea of when you're talking to these other people who share in these kinds of ideas, you do develop an identity from that. And there is a sense of community that comes from that. So it is almost literally like being at a church, right? Where it's
And
like,
that
yeah,
narcissistic personality is absolutely contagious. So
yeah, yeah.
it's not like everybody who's in the cult was born that way,
Hmm.
or naturally was that way, but they will absolutely follow the leader and pick up personality characteristics of the leader and become, more like the leader, to be more, to fit in better, and to be a better follower.
Right.
I had that happen to myself. Like, when
Mm,
I was in that world.
right.
I wasn't in QAnon, but I was in a group that was very aligned with that sort of philosophy,
Mhm.
and it totally it in order to fit into that group, I had to change my whole personality, and there's a whole like backstory
Yeah. Which
about
we
why
explored on our previous episode
yeah,
of Truth
about
Wanted with you, so you should
why
check
I
that
got
out.
into it, but in
Right.
brief, I got into it because the people in my life who I was closest to were in very deep, and if I was I and they said to me at one point, "Coleman, you're either with us or you're against us." And so
Right.
I had to
Mm.
either accept their beliefs and accept, this new paradigm that I was not initially comfortable with at all, or find myself completely on the outs with people that were very important to me in my life, family and friends. And so actually felt my own personality changing throughout the
Mm.
process of accepting I decided to be with them and not against them. And so I felt my whole personality changing. And I see that happening in the world. I've seen that happening, in large, in big ways and small ways as people follow leaders like that.
Mm.
Um, I see big groups of people in this country following leaders like that
Yeah.
and having their own way of interacting with people online. Like, the sheer vitriol that you see from people online, it hasn't always been that way. Like polite conversation used to be the norm.
Mhm.
Polite conversation in
Well,
politics and a sense of decorum in
yeah.
politics used to be the norm, and now it's not.
Yeah, I would say shit talking online has always been the norm, at least. But on you're right. In politics, in the public stage, there
Yes.
was a decorum there, right? I do think internet culture broadly has affected politics in that sense, right? Where that stuff is leaking. I mean, look at the Twitter accounts of you know
Yep.
all the stuff posting that you see these days is wild. It's almost unrealistic if you wrote it in a book that people would post the stuff that they post. But going back to this thing you were talking about the kinds of folks that you are associated with, and the kinds of people that are acceptant of these ideas. I mentioned narcissism, but really what I'm talking about is this ego sense, right? It's like
Mhm.
um I think the hardest thing for people to let go of is, saying that they're wrong because of the investment that gets put into these ideas. For a lot of these QAnon folks, for example, they've been doing this for years, and it's
Mhm.
hard to let go of that because you have to, one, admit you're wrong, and also disassociate yourself from the people like you mentioned that you grew to know and
Mhm.
were a part of you in some kind of way. And there's so much psychology that goes into that will never be, I don't know, really understood by the folks on the outside unless you've lived that experience, right?
Mhm.
So it's very very difficult because I don't know if you can really reason out the ideas from a lot of these people. You certainly can with some people. I mean, people do leave. I certainly left, my own kinds of ideas, but
Yep.
um,
And I left my situation,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and 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 what I realized though was that when I left that situation, I was doubly lucky, one, to get out, but two, to realize what had happened to me. Because people that are in high control groups or people that are in, extremist groups, um, will get out and not really ever have a lot of introspection or reflection about it. And then there's this phenomenon called cult hopping, where they'll
mhm,
just jump onto the next thing. And and so that's, I think, what we're finding with these QAnon folks is that they found the next thing, but they haven't stopped to reflect. And I've followed some bloggers, who were in that sort of Q-ish space, and they would put out a new article every day or two, and it would make some prediction which would be wrong, but it wouldn't matter because by the time it was shown to be wrong, they've moved on to the next thing or the next five things, and they've
right.
completely forgotten about the thing that they said last week, and it's old news now, and they've moved on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how common is that? I mean, it doesn't even have to be super specific. It can just, as long as it gets a sense of a feeling that somebody can agree with, I feel like people will just latch on to that. It's like, yeah, that's true. It's true for me in that moment. But the verifiable stuff, it gets really wacky. Like with QAnon, again, it was the adrenochrome stuff, the kids in bunker stuff, the top secret, military nuclear secret stuff that just, I don't know, never panned out and never will. But really sad things. Although, but getting contemporary again, though, talking about the war, there's always conspiracies when it comes to war. My favorite thing I've seen so far
Oh yeah.
is, that this is actually to stop us from knowing about the portals. Did you know that we have portals
What?
happening in Iran? Two intradimensional beings, of course. Some may say angels, some may say aliens.
Wow.
Intradimensional beings, yeah, and they are in and around the Middle East. So every time we do these sorts of campaigns, it's actually us trying to, cover up from people finding that. Did you know that?
I mean, the Middle East has been there for thousands and thousands of years. Is it suddenly like these portals have not been there the whole time? Like, is this they just suddenly appeared and that's why we have to go to war?
Well, I think that's a good question. I don't know the logistics behind the portals, but there's always been this idea of like, oh, the Nephilim are there, and the Nephilim
Mm.
are kind of occupying this space because it's the Middle East. That's by Jerusalem and stuff. So all these, they don't. To be fair, they couldn't tell you the difference. They probably couldn't tell you where Israel versus you know Iran is on a map. But I think they have this idea that this general this general landmass is has some funky stuff going on, right? That's why we got to protect it because also end times prophecy stuff. A lot of links, a lot of connections there you can make.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I'm getting some word that we are still live here on YouTube and that we might be having some difficulties with TikTok. So we might not hear from folks from TikTok at the moment while we're getting that sorted out. But folks, we are, of course, live on YouTube and we do have open lines. We would love to talk to you about what kind of stuff are you hearing recently? What's the conspiracy theories you've got going on in your life? Doesn't have to be ones you necessarily believe in, although if you do have one, you'll want to run it by us. Go ahead, see if you can try. But we want to know, what have you guys been hearing? Because I know between Coleman and I, we've certainly been hearing a lot. And normally, again, this is where we talk about our we want the truth segment, our questions and answers, but we don't have any this
Yeah.
week. So
Well, why don't we talk about this article that we just got sent where a Florida lawmaker claims evidence of interdimensional beings? And this was revealed on the official government channel called the Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay. Yeah. I got this one here too. I'm pulling it up as we speak. This was sent to us before the show.
Yep. Here's a
Uh,
quote. Here's a
yeah.
quote. They call them interdimensional beings. I think that they can actually operate through the time spaces that we currently have. Um, and this is
And that's not something that I came up with on my own. That's based on stuff that we've seen. That's based on
yes,
information we've
highly
been told.
highly credible witnesses um, on a government. Let's see, what is the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reforms Task Force aimed
Yeah.
at declassifying federal secrets.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big secret to keep.
Yeah, the word weave is doing a lot of work there, isn't it? Because it sounds like we're seeing a situation where, and this has happened every single time, like these folks are like testifying to Congress and stuff, like they're like, oh yeah, I've heard from other people that they've seen images and they've seen some things. And it's like, okay, well, do we have literally any firsthand accounts of anything that isn't just,
Credible,
yeah.
credible sources, credible witnesses have said this. We don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess we're not getting that yet. Yeah, what happened, huh? I thought what happened to the UFO disclosures? Thought we were
I
getting that.
Yeah,
Mm,
this politician went on to tell Joe Rogan, "Have I seen a portal open? No.
of
Have I
course.
seen a spaceship personally? No. Have I
Mm,
seen evidence of this? Yes. Have I seen photo documentation of aircraft that I believe were not made by mankind? Yes.
Hmm.
I would like to see that too.
Yeah, I would like to see
Because
that too. Well, photos
because
are notorious for never being manipulated.
no, no,
Yeah,
photos cannot be faked. That's
right.
true.
That's
That's
true.
true.
We
We've
we
known
know
that for
that.
a long time.
Right, right. That's in the Bible. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so you're saying you think that the war is a distraction from the Epstein files. I think maybe the war is actually a distraction from the UFO disclosures. They don't want to talk about that anymore. That's how far back this goes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty deep, man. Because the amazing thing about UFO disclosure is
mm,
that it's always right about to happen.
isn't it? Isn't it?
I remember growing up. I remember in the '90s, UFO disclosure was about to happen.
Yeah, right.
Like, like definitely by the year 2000, right? Like
Yeah.
that shit was going down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had people like Bob Lazar promising us, and Timothy Good, and what were these other guys? But
Yeah.
writing books. They all titled their books Disclosure. I think every book was called Disclosure. No
Yeah,
matter who wrote
right.
it. But it was
Stories from a former, SEAL Team 6 guy
right.
that,
Yes.
yeah, was, saw some shit basically, but can't
Yeah.
talk too much because, he's classified.
Yes.
But yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people don't realize the money that goes into this. There really is a whole small economy of this kind of UFO alien stuff. A lot of people are like, "Oh, well, why? What incentive do they have?" Absolutely, they will grift for this stuff. 100%. I think
Mm.
people have too much faith in people. Honestly, if you don't think that that's the case, I think you have a naive view of people. If you think that people would not lie for money for a living and be totally okay with that, because it happens all the time.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. It's speaking of the '90s,
mm.
the other big thing that was happening back then was crop circles,
Right,
and that was, I mean, that was huge, and it was picked up and incorporated into the plot line of the X Files,
right.
and it was part of the UFO culture that was so hot back then,
Yeah.
and then I don't know if you know how that story ended, but the guys that made the crop circles ended up confessing.
Yes.
Um, and they ended up coming clean and explaining how they did it and demonstrating how they did it and like
Right.
taking the news cameras out and showing exactly how they planned out these geometric patterns in the crops and the tools that they used and they made one lot on for the reporters and the hardcore believers didn't believe them.
Right. They thought it was a cover up, obviously,
Right.
because well, why wouldn't it be? But then, yeah, I don't see too much crop circle stuff these days. Right? Hasn't really happened too much.
Yeah, or the cattle mutilations. It's
Cattle mutilations, right? Nazca
and
lines. Everybody was obsessed with the Nazca lines. That was another one
yeah,
too.
and this thing now that with Joe Rogan,
Mhm.
there's always some shit on Joe Rogan,
I know.
but
I
but
know.
this latest shit on Joe Rogan is okay, so is it aliens or is it interdimensional beings? Like what it's this the story just keeps changing, but it's they're always chasing something that's just out of reach, and I want to make a Nostradamus level prediction here that this interdimensional beings is going to fizzle out, and this evidence that we've been promised is not going to materialize.
Yeah, 100%. But like you said, we're just around the corner, Coleman. We just have to wait a little bit more. It's like the rapture. It's coming any day now. You know?
It is, and there are a lot of interesting parallels to UFO culture and religion.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely something there. I think there is a kind of personality type that does want to be spiritual, because I think it does give you a sense of individualism and identity that way, especially with these UFO types, because the UFO types, you're never just a member of the church like a regular Christian guy, right? You were contacted by someone specifically, or you had some sort of insight, or you were reincarnated from some past life. There's always like some special story to a lot of this stuff that that is kind of different, isn't it?
There is absolutely a spiritual component to the UFO
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, a lot of people who claim to be contacting extraterrestrials are doing it through a sort of a spiritual channeling
Hmm.
sort of experience, which is, is totally a religious experience,
Yeah.
just with just a different brand of religion.
Hmm. It's true. Speaking of different random religion, we were talking about Joe Rogan. What do you think is the worst Joe Rogan guest ever? Because I've been critical of Joe Rogan for at least half a decade now,
Hmm.
and it feels like literally nothing has changed in the guest department. I mean, I thought things were really bad when Alex Jones was on, and they're
Yes,
like, "Oh, we're friends and stuff." Like really, the guy that lied about Sandy Hook, like that's the
that's
guy.
insane. Yes,
Yeah,
Alex Jones
um,
is definitely up there. Um,
yeah,
uh, Runners up for me would be I think Alex Jones has to take the cake.
that's a top five at least.
Yeah, top five. Runners up I think would be Stefan Molyneux,
Oh yes,
the white
yeah,
supremacist.
true,
Um, he
true.
was on Joe Rogan twice, I believe. Um, and then I did an episode of my on my YouTube show about the appearance of Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan, who was also on there twice to explain his how he had concocted a new type of science in which 1 times 1 equals 2.
Wait, maybe I haven't heard about this. Terrence Howard says 1 times 1 equals 2. What's the story there?
It's a whole story, and you're
Okay.
welcome to go and check out my episode about it because
All
it's
right.
a two-parter because he was on Joe Rogan twice, but he believes that he has solved the spiritual mysteries of the universe through his geometric designs.
Ooh.
It's kind of hard to put into words, but it's there's a lot of numerology in there. There's a lot of like callbacks to people like Tesla and like the sort
Oh,
of
they love Tesla. They
the
love
the
Tesla.
the mysticism of science. And so he actually reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and since he's a Hollywood actor, he actually got to knock on that door and presented scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson with his thesis,
Okay.
um, which consists mostly of drawings and memes
Okay.
and cartoons
All right.
and
Okay.
and and boldly asserted statements like I have unraveled the spool of thread of the universal weaving tapestry of time and space
There's
and
that narcissism. Yep. Okay.
yeah, and so it read the whole thing reads like that because I actually read it to look into this whole phenomenon
Wow.
because it was a super popular Joe Rogan episode. Millions of people watched this, and Joe, to his discredit, sat there the whole time and was just like, "Whoa,
Yeah, of course.
wow,
Yeah, that doesn't surprise
that's
me.
I wish I could understand how that's so deep, man."
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love one of the biggest entertainment pieces of media in the world is just also the biggest giver of disinformation and misinformation out there. Really cool. But thankful. Let's be real though. How many people are like, yeah, this is legit when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? I feel like once you get math involved, people get tuned out like real quick. They're like, oh, this is crazy, right? Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do math very often, but
Mhm.
I can multiply 1 times 1. I can
Yeah,
manage that.
right, that's true. Well, that's more than what, Terrence Howard can do, apparently. That reminds me of, like, was it Bam Margera that was like, I don't know, he was probably after he hit his head or something, but he was like, "I invented a new language." And it was like, he, like, wrote down it almost looks like Hebrew. It's like a new alphabet, but, like, he also, like it was spoken differently, and he was, like, trying to get everybody to speak this new language that he came up with. I don't know, it was a little strange, but I think he kinda dropped that, later on, but, that's another celebrity that was just like, "Yeah, I'm I got it figured out, you guys, come on board my thing."
Yeah. Yeah. That profound confidence
Mhm.
in something that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It just makes you raise your eyebrow. But what makes you raise your eyebrow even more, I think, is the fact that some people are into it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, Terrence Howard, at least, and some other folks, kind of like that Time Cube guy, you know, that was
Time
big a
Cube.
couple
Tell me
years
about
ago.
the Time Cube guy.
You know about Time Cube guy? Oh
No.
man, Time Cube's amazing. The story goes, so there's a guy named Frederick Knudsen who does these big long documentaries about these ideas. The one on him was like 4 hours long or something. But basically, he was a professor. I think he was a professor at a school for a while, or he taught somewhere at a university, or maybe I'm getting my facts confused. But the idea was that the universe is all just a big cube, a time cube specifically, and they had these big, long, rambling ideas, on this website. It was like timecube.com or something, and it kind of became infamous among, skeptic circles and stuff in the mid aughts because he would respond to everybody that messaged him, arguing all the time. So if you try to ask him questions about it, he would come back with even more stuff. So eventually they got him to invited him to come talk about his ideas at this university. And they're like, "Oh, we want to let you speak your mind." And of course, it's just an hour of rambling and all nonsense.
Okay. So according to Wikipedia, that was MIT in
Yeah.
2022
Yeah, there you go.
as part of a student-organized extracurricular event during the independent activities period. Okay.
Yeah, there you
And
go. So Time Cube. Yeah, that's it. This guy, Otis Eugene Ray. Yep. It was his own little theory of everything. So
Otis
yeah.
Gene Ray. Okay.
Yeah. But
Yes.
again,
And so
yeah.
along those lines, so in the follow-up to there was an enormous reaction to that Joe Rogan episode because Joe didn't push back at all to anything Terrence said, no matter how nutty it was. And it was really nutty. Like I compared what he said in that interview to a random pseudoscience word salad generator that you can go online and just look up a random word salad generator for pseudoscience drivel, and it was the same exact thing. And so Joe got, I think, an unusual amount of pushback against that, saying, why don't you have Terrence debate a real scientist? And so Joe obliged and brought a real scientist onto his show to debate Terrence Howard, and guess who he picked?
Who would that be?
Eric Weinstein.
Really? Wait, why? No, that's terrible.
It was a terrible choice. And so then for that episode, I had to research this Eric Weinstein guy who I didn't know very much about. But it turns out that he had also invented his own theory of everything, in which he believed that he deserved the credit for solving physics' greatest mystery. The only problem is that he wrote it a long time ago and he just couldn't remember the answer anymore.
Really?
But he still wanted the credit for it, and he still wanted to be recognized as the genius that he was.
Of course. Yeah, of course. He has to.
Even though, the dog ate his homework, he couldn't actually, present anything that he had discovered, but he had made an amazing discovery. And so he came on to school Terrence Howard, and the two of them, wow.
I can't wait to when one day when I finally just lose it and I just decide to go, sicko mode and just completely start talking nonsense. And then eventually I get invited on Joe Rogan. Because people will be like, wait, you spent all this time talking about all these other ideas. No, it doesn't matter. Because apparently nobody looks up anything about anybody's history ever. So I could just do it, right? And you could too. We should both go on there together. Actually, it'd be great. Here's what we do. We come on with competing ideas.
Yes.
And then I'm out there and I'm saying some stuff and Joe's like, hang on, I need to phone a friend.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm the expert guy on this topic. Yeah. And that's how we get in, baby.
Don't buy that guy's perpetual motion machine.
Right.
Buy my perpetual motion machine.
Right. His runs on positive matter. Mine runs on negative matter.
Mine is 1,000% more efficient.
That's right. Yeah. If 1 times 1 is 2, then yeah, 1,000 times more efficient. I think we can talk about that. Okay, so
Do the
this is
math.
yeah,
Do
doing the
your own
math.
math, people.
Do your own math. Yeah, this is my theory. This is my before we get to the call here. If any of your conspiracy theories involve math, it just won't work. It has to be cool or spiritual or like have some sort of secret undertones to it. If it involves math, it's just not going to fly.
Counterpoint numerology.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess.
It's not real math, but it involves numbers, and it involves taking the letters in people's names and adding them up so that they add up to 666 or something.
Yeah, I just think that, yeah, okay, that's a good counterpoint. I'm not going to lie. I guess you kind of have to be involved with Christianity already, though, to get into that. So there is sort of that's a co-opting of spiritual ideas.
I don't know how numerology fits into Christianity exactly, but I guess,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, I guess you're right. I guess you can be a new world order numerologist guy.
I mean, numerology can be used to justify or support literally anything. So it really works no matter what your belief system is. So, if you're out there, if you're a Christian, if you're a Satanist, if you're a QAnon, just try numerology, add up some numbers until they get the answer that you want that supports you, and then claim victory, and you're good.
You're right. Okay, that's true. Okay, let me amend my thesis here, because here's what I think it is. I think it's numerology is popular, but I think it's almost always like the same. Like I don't know. It seems to only matter to certain individuals, if that makes sense. You don't build followers on numerology. That's more of where I'm going.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think so. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. The guy that spoke at Congress, the alien guy. I can't even remember his name.
Lou Alessandro?
No, starts with an A. What's his name? Anyway, these alien types, right? They have particular followings, like Michael Flynn, there is a following with him and QAnon and stuff, right? I think because their ideas were more empowering to the average individual. I think the numerology stuff is more just, it's a smaller crowd for a reason. I don't know.
It can be like adjacent to your belief system. Like when you're in a corner and you have no other justification for what you believe, you can fall back on numerology, but you don't have to use it every day, right?
Okay, yeah. You brought up a good analogy earlier, actually, talking about QAnon, where it's like you need a clergy to interpret events. Yes. There was a lot of numerology stuff with QAnon, so that was like sort of an undertone, but it wasn't always the main course.
Right, because when you need to, when you're out there in your pig farm and you need to go on to 4chan and make a Q drop, as a Q clearance government agent, who is actually a pig farmer, then you need to come up with something, right? And you run out of ideas eventually, so just type some numbers, and it works.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. Okay, we do have some folks that want to talk to us. Let's just jump right into our first call. Before we do that, I want to give a special shout out to the patron of the week, because every single week we're always giving a shout out to the folks who donate on the Patreon. This week's patron of the week is going to be Jason. Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you to everybody that donates on the Patreon. You guys are awesome. Now let's dive right in. We're talking to Greg from California. Greg wants to talk to us about conspiracy theories that are true. Is that right, Greg? You're live on Truth Wanted.
Yeah. I'm not really comfortable calling them conspiracy theories because I actually believe they're true,
Okay. That's fair.
Let's have an example.
I think it's common sense that George W. Bush was behind 9/11 plus Mossad.
Okay. That you say common sense. What does that mean?
Just common sense. It's just like, it's obvious,
What makes it obvious? Explain that to me.
What makes it obvious is I don't know if you've seen the video of him reading books to children, They're talking about steal. I forgot what the other words, but they're talking about steal. They're talking about plane. They're talking about hit. They're laughing at us. They're showing. And
So
what else?
you think that
Yeah,
people
go ahead.
who make these massive conspiracies also also like to like put in little like Easter eggs or like little inside jokes to
I mean, that's just weird. The day on 9/11, still playing hit, to little children. That's kind of weird. Um, there was no weapons of mass destruction. That was all a lie. We killed millions of Iraqis for no reason. George W. Bush needs to get elected. He needed to, make the American people nervous. That's why his approval rating was like, I think it was like 82, because people were so scared during 9/11. They reelected him again. So yeah, and I think he was trying to help big oil companies. And yeah, and Israel was also behind it. So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, talk about Mossad and, all these intelligence agencies, right? Here's where you and I
Yeah.
might agree, like, because definitely shady stuff has happened in the past, and that's been proven. That's been proven in a court of law. That's why we
And
know
planes
about some of the
don't.
stuff
Yeah, it
that's
was a
happened
demolition
because
too. Yeah.
yeah, because trials come out afterwards and they're like, hey, here's all this stuff that happened, and stuff gets covered up. But the reason why we know about some specific events in intelligence agencies' histories is because those trials and stuff happen, right? As far as I'm aware, when it comes to 9/11, I don't think it's ever been demonstrated that George W. Bush had any involvement in the September 11th attacks. And if we're going to say that he was because he mentioned some words in a classroom, that's kind of a hard sell for me, right?
I think where I'm with you is that I agree 100% that he was behind the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's out there in the open and that's known, and that he had something to gain from that war.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people don't do something unless they have something to gain from it. So
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
mean,
there's a very strong case to be made that he used the events of 9/11 to sell this war that he may have already wanted to do, or sell this
How about Israel?
idea of an attack that he already wanted to do.
Yeah.
There was no doubt that it was an excellent political opportunity for him.
Yeah, because it is a fact. Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction.
Mass destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on the same page there. The
totally.
defense later was that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll finish my point and I'll let you speak. Was that at the time that's what we thought. That was the information that we knew, right? That's what came out later, and we can talk about the bullshitteriness of that, right? But that is a very different explanation from we planned the attack, right? So I think Coleman and I share concurring opinions on this. But what are your thoughts?
Like
Go ahead.
Larry, the owner of the 9/11 towers, he's never missed a day of his work, of appearing to work. And what a coincidence! On the day September 11th, he had to go to the dentist. I think there's 5 dancing Israelis. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. There's 5 literal dancing Israelis recording the attack, laughing and dancing. A woman caught him in New Jersey, and they get deported back to Israel. And Israel claims to have the greatest intelligence. That's the benefit they claim to give us. But boom, what do you know? On 9/11, they didn't warn us about these terrorists, supposedly terrorists, So yeah, I think. How about Israel? What do you guys think about Israel, the Jews?
Okay.
Wait, hold on. I'm not quite done with 9/11.
Yeah. Let's one topic at a time here.
And
okay.
So
we're done with 9/11.
The interesting thing to me about the 9/11, and by the way, I was a believer in this back in the day because somebody gave me this documentary called Loose Change, and I watched it, and I was like, whoa, it blew my mind, and I wasn't like, I didn't really stop to think about a counterpoint, or I didn't even look for a counterpoint. But the interesting thing to me about the 9/11 conspiracy theory is that there's actually competing theories. And so there's people who believe in different theories about 9/11 that totally disagree with and contradict each other, but they're all sort of in the class of 9/11 truthers. So there's the let it happen theory, where George Bush knew about it but didn't stop it because it was going to be politically beneficial for him to have a Pearl Harbor moment. There's the let it happen. There's the made it happen. And then there's the faked it and it didn't actually happen. school of thought. And there's other like factions within those factions. So which of those three are you in?
Oh, I think George W. Bush and Israel let it happen.
Let it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's different.
I don't doubt that there's people in Saudi Arabia, right? That's where the terrorists are from. I don't doubt that. Yeah, they hate us and they probably would plan an attack on us. But like, aren't we the ones that we have the greatest intelligence, right, in the world? We should have known.
Yeah, but okay. Here's what I'd say to that though, Greg, is that's a lot of marketing.
Passports. Don't forget about the passports. We couldn't find anything in the building but the passports. Like what the heck?
Okay. One thing at a time. Because there's a couple different ideas there. We can definitely go back. Okay. But just responding directly to what you just said, right? Don't we have the greatest? I mean, how have we demonstrated that to be true over the course of, how many years, right? I mean, how many times has the U.S. dropped the ball when it comes to stuff like this? How many times has Mossad dropped the ball when it comes to all kinds of stuff, right? Of course, they're going to say they're the best,
yeah,
right?
I mean, look at Vietnam. That went well.
Yeah.
We have the best geographics, we have a lot of military bases,
Do you know how much money and time was wasted wandering the desert in all of these wars? Like, do you know how many times people couldn't complete basic objectives in all of this? Like, if you look up the history of all, from Gulf War to modern period, right? Anytime we're in that particular region of the world, the U.S. is constantly fucking up. We killed Pat Tillman. Terrorists didn't kill Pat Tillman. Our own U.S. soldiers killed Pat Tillman, and the U.S. kind of covered that up and was like, yeah, no, he died in action because he's a hero. Like, the U.S. is messing up on stuff all the time. The fact that they didn't catch some terrorists from Saudi Arabia in time to do this, that is the least surprising thing, if anything.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, Israel's supposed to give us great intelligence, and
they're supposed to. And yet, what happened 2 years ago? Right? Now Israel's doing some bombs because there's an attack, right? How does that happen?
Why were they there,
Well, I think the let it happen theory is the most plausible, especially because you can kind of stretch, like there's a whole range of letting it happen. Like there's the incompetence of like there was intelligence there and it was overlooked. I think that's probably the most plausible versus George Bush knew at the time and date exactly when it was going to happen. I think that's the one thing that's difficult for me to believe about that is that it would be political suicide if the truth of that ever came out.
Well, George W. Bush is very unpopular right now. So yeah, if you look at the recent polls, like how do Americans feel about him after his presidency? He's very unpopular. So yeah,
I didn't like him at the time.
Yeah, and it is a fact that during wartime, right? Usually the approval rating of presidents go up. So and listen to us real closely here, because Cole and I are on the same page. We're not saying that George Bush didn't take advantage of that, right? But that's a very big difference between taking advantage of that or taking political opportunities versus knowing that a terrorist attack was going to happen and 100% letting it fly, right?
Like Franklin Roosevelt, man, he allowed Pearl Harbor to happen, probably.
Well, wait, that's a whole different thing. Why would you say he would allow Pearl Harbor to happen?
Dude, come on, man.
So are there any attacks on the U.S. that didn't happen on purpose, or are they all
governments allow attacks all the time,
Right. But the thing is, we can't just point and shoot and say, oh, this one happened because of this one happened because we have to look at reasons and facts and evidence, right? So we can't just say, oh, well, there's a motivation there. That's not enough. That's not how we figure things are true or not, right?
And part of it is this proportionality bias that we have, where we believe that big events must have big causes. And so, a lone gunman can't be the cause of some world-changing assassination, or, a small group of terrorists can't be the cause of a world-changing event like 9/11. But they can. They absolutely can. And it's definitely happened before. So it's a possibility, right? It's possible that that the administration didn't know until after the fact and then jumped on the opportunity. Would you say that's possible?
Always, we could say secret society, we could say New World Order, we could say the elitists, the lizard people, we could say all that. I think we need to point to one group, one group of people in the world that has been behind everything,
Why? Why do we need to do that?
It must be. It's hard to be behind everything, It would be exhausting.
Oh, it's obvious. It's the Jews.
Why is that obvious? What makes that obvious?
I mean, that is where every conspiracy rabbit hole leads, right?
Yeah.
It's dude. If you study history and look at all the evil atrocities, all the evil ideologies, I think they're evil. I mean, you guys may disagree, but they're all involved with one group of people. It's the Jews. I mean,
Was George W. Bush Jewish?
the world, but was George W. Bush Jewish? But I think he was a big Zionist though. Like all the presidents have been. All their advisors, all their cabinets are Jews. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think it would be in the U.S.'s best interest to support Israel?
Why would it be? I don't know. Just wait. Why would it be in the best interest?
Why would it be in their best interest? Is it because that maybe Israel is the strongest ally the U.S. has in the Middle East?
No, they're not a good ally. They killed 34 of our U.S. soldiers in 1967 in the Six-Day War.
Okay, but if you had to pick a country in the Middle East that would be ride or die for the United States right now, who would you pick?
You think Israel? Wait, you think Israel's like a good ally, or?
I'm not saying they're a good ally. I am talking about
compared to all the other choices.
Yes, historically, who has allied with the U.S. in every major conflict since Israel's been a thing?
Oh yeah, Israel's not a good ally according to the definitions of a great ally.
I don't think you're listening to me, Greg. Who would you pick out of all the countries that have allied with the U.S. more strong? Who's allied with the U.S. more strongly in the Middle East than Israel? Can you name another country?
Yeah, there's the UAE. They're a good ally right now. There's Saudi Arabia is pretty friendly with us right now. Yeah, we're allies with them. There's Jordan. There's Morocco has been an ally with us since the beginning of our country, I believe. They're like one of our first.
So do you think Morocco is going to help us out against Iran? See, there's historical reasons why geopolitics is the way it is. It doesn't have to do with one specific group or race of people being in control of stuff, right? There's other reasons why this stuff can happen. And you can choose to believe in that or not. The evidence is still going to be in the side of, what's right and what's true. And we have to look at that if we're going to make a case. We can't just say, oh, every single evil thing that's ever happened from this group of people because X, Y, Z, because these motivations, right? That's not enough. We have to look at
I'll tell you
why things happen because.
Well, I mean, if I could tell you, our intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, told us that there's no evidence that Iran was developing a nuclear weapon, and still the U.S. made us go to war against Iran. So, like, there's been evidence that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon.
I'm talking a lot here, and I want Coleman to bring in, but Greg, hear us when we say we agree with you in when it comes to the weapons of mass destruction thing, demonstrably false, right? Demonstrably false. There's no argument from us on that. Mm-hmm. But you're saying it's because the Jewish people organized a terrorist attack, or at least knew about a terrorist attack and let it happen. And we're saying shit just fucking happened and a terrorist attack happened, because why would any sane or reasonable person let something like that happen? It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, did you know Benjamin Netanyahu was caught, quote unquote, he said 9/11 is good for us, quote unquote, 9/11, this is good for us.
So because Benjamin not
George Bush too,
according to the Wall Street Journal. So yeah.
So that's why we're still working with Israel right now, is because it's good for Benjamin Netanyahu and his and what he wants. That's your opinion.
Boy, and we're stupid. We fall for the Jewish lie. We fall for they are God's chosen people. We fall that they're good, You know, because us Goyim, we're stupid, but you know, not for long. You know, us Gentiles.
So I'm glad that you went there so quickly. I had a very long conversation with another person who believed in similar conspiracy theories, and it took us months to get to this sort of rock bottom place where it was the Jews versus the Gentiles. But you just came right out with it, and I just want to say in response that bad things happen when you blame the world's problems on a particular race of people. Like it's not a pretty outcome when you start doing that. And so, especially if it's like, I think the people that want to blame all of the world's problems on a particular race maybe need to like broaden their friend circle, because I think if you actually get to know people that are in the groups that are getting demonized, whether it's the Jews or whether it's the trans people or whether, you know, whatever scapegoat of the day it is, like if you actually get to know some of them, it'll be harder to say that, you know, this, you know, Bill over here, my buddy that I, you know, went to college with is actually in a conspiracy to overthrow, you know, to control the one world government. I just think like do you know Jewish people personally? Do you have that sort of those sort of connections in your life?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've talked to Jewish people before. Yeah.
you've talked to them before. Okay,
Yeah.
and they didn't turn into reptiles or anything. Like maybe talk to them some more. Uh,
Yeah, what did they say when you told them you think that their race is responsible for every evil thing that's happened in human history?
Not every evil thing, but for the majority, 90%, I would say.
Okay, what did they respond when you told them that they're responsible for 99% of evil in human
Can
history?
you give me proof? And I gave them proof, and they're like, oh, everybody does bad things. But I was like, no. How could a small group of people that are 0.2% of the world's population, you know, be in charge of this, be so involved in this, and they couldn't respond, you know?
I mean, that's a good point, though. Everybody does bad things. Like, did the Jews wipe out the Native Americans?
Yeah.
Did the Jews cause the Holocaust in Germany? Like, there's a lot of bad things that have happened in the world, right?
Did the Jews cause the conflicts between the Tutsis and the Hutsis? Like, are they responsible for, you know, Aborigine, you know, migrations and stuff? Like, what do you mean that every bad thing?
Did they make the Japanese internment camps in World War II?
Can I tell you, transgenderism was started by the first ever trans clinic was opened in Germany by Dr.
I don't know how I predicted that one.
What did that have to do with anything we just said?
Wait, the man who created the Communist Party in Germany?
No, hey, wait, Greg, what did that have to do with anything we just said? Why are you jumping to one other thing? Why have you done this entire conversation where every single time Coleman and I bring up a point, you just completely ignore it and you bring up something else? Is it because you don't have a good response?
Go again?
Why do I need to go again? Is it because you weren't listening?
No, because I was talking, but you kind of interrupted me. But
actually, you didn't answer the questions that we asked you because you brought up a completely different point. So do you want to try to engage with us in conversation, or do you want to keep making up stupid bullshit? Yes?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Are you going to answer my question?
I'm trying to.
No, you're actually not. So let's try this one more time. We gave you about 5 or 6. We can keep listing off examples of lots of evil things that don't seem to have anything to do with Jewish people. And you're talking all this shit about trans people. So
transgenderism.
Right. So the question was, how can Jewish people be responsible for bad things in the world if we can keep giving examples of things that were obviously had nothing to do with Jewish people, that Jewish people weren't even there?
Atomic bomb was a bad invention. Yeah.
Again, you're not answering. Do you know that you're not answering the question?
Wait. No, I'm asking you, do you agree that the atom bomb just is very bad and dangerous and could destroy the whole world?
It's a different topic.
It's not what he's...
No, I'm telling you, wait, answer. Do you agree that it's a bad invention? It's a bad weapon?
It's a destructive invention, sure. Where are you going with this?
Oh, the atom bomb. The minds behind the atom bomb were Albert Einstein and J. Oppenheimer, both Jewish.
Yeah, and guess who funded it? The American government. Like, you know, just because two Jewish scientists were involved doesn't mean anything. You know what? We also get a lot of our science from the Nazis. Okay, the kind of the opposite of being Jewish. So what's the deal here? Yeah, there's groups of people that have done bad things, and a lot of them aren't Jewish. Actually, turns out.
Yeah, I think the point that we're making here is that you're cherry picking. Like you're saying, here's some bad things that happen in the world that just happen to have something to do with Jewish people. But we can do the same thing all day. We can cherry pick examples of probably many more examples of bad things that have happened in the world that had nothing to do with Jewish people.
Yeah, the atom bomb. So you guys don't think the atom bomb?
The Manhattan Project. How many Jewish people were on the Manhattan Project? Do you know?
I know the leader was J. Oppenheimer.
Okay, so the leader of the Manhattan Project, a project which involved hundreds, thousands of people, right? Between scientists, military, whatever. How many of them were Jewish?
I don't know.
You don't know. But you know that one guy was Jewish. So that means Jewish people are responsible for it.
There's many Jews, I'm pretty sure.
What if I said it was mostly German people? Would you say that Germans would be responsible for it if they made up more
listening to
people?
Jew Oppenheimer. It's like what I said. The Jews control the goyim. They control us Gentiles.
So do you think J. Oppenheimer was the only guy that was like, "Hey, we need to do this," and no non-Jewish people agreed with him and was like, "Yeah, actually, this is a good idea." He was the sole architect.
No, he was behind it. You know. The invention.
Okay, so let me just get this straight. So your argument is that Jewish people do bad things, and when it's not Jewish people doing bad things, it's still the Jewish people's fault.
Jeffrey Epstein was Jewish.
There you go again. Just listing off other stuff that's not relevant.
All right. Well,
hello, Greg. Are you there?
Hello. Wait. The biggest sex trafficking ring. You don't think that's bad?
Greg, I'm about to hang up. And here's why I'm about to hang up. Because you seem to not be interested in having a conversation. You seem more interested in perpetuating this idea and believing in this idea than actually having a meaningful discussion about it. So you could have tried to convince us. You could have tried to make your argument. You could have tried to bring up good points about why your idea is true. But I don't think you're actually interested in that. I think you're interested in hating Jewish people. And I think you are going to keep hating them no matter what we say. Because I don't think you've actually demonstrated any other idea that's contrary to that fact. So here's your last chance. You can convince me that I'm wrong in my conjecture and that you do have good reasons for this and that you are interested in a good faith discussion, or I can just hang up the call right now. So it's your choice. Hello, Greg.
I think he made his choice.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, I'm dropping the call. All right, well, that was certainly a conversation.
That got really dark really fast, man.
Yeah, it sure did. But we have to talk about it because this is what people believe.
It is. And the people that I've talked to that are really deep into conspiracy theories, like they don't lead with it because they know it's kind of indecorous, but it always comes up eventually that that when they start using the words like Zionism and Goyim and the people apart and all of that stuff, it's you know where it's going.
Yeah. And what's typical with Greg here is that there's no interest in getting any deeper with any of the topics that he discussed, right? It's just, oh, here's a little idea to implant on your mind. Oh, here's another idea to implant in your mind. It always happens like that in these kinds of conversations. Because it's about casting doubt more than it's about figuring out what's real and what's not real.
Right. Just throw a lot of mud at the wall, and if something sticks, or even if 90% of it doesn't stick, you're still stuck something in people's minds.
Yeah. Very, very sad to have a worldview like that because one, you obviously have a hateful and disgusting worldview. But two, you're limiting yourself from good people that could be you could be closer to in your life, and meaningful relationships that you could have with people in your life. But if you have that kind of view about a particular race of person, you're never going to have that with that, because that's always going to be at the back of your mind. Not saying you can't even be friends with somebody that's Jewish. I'm sure I have no doubt that he does, but you're not going to have a deep, meaningful relationship with people with that, right? Because that's the defense, right? Oh, I can't be racist. I have a black friend, right? How many racists have black friends?
It's the same sort of thinking behind like love the sin or hate the sin.
Right.
Like it's gonna be a wall between you and this person who you believe is going to hell. You know, how good a friend are you really gonna be to them?
Yeah. Yeah. Terrible that we have to have that conversation. But again, I would rather bring those ideas to light than pretend like they're not there, because they are there, and it's really bad. It's really bad, especially in their popularity. Before we move on to our next caller, real quickly, I just want to shout out, if you're enjoying the show, please consider liking and subscribing. We also have weekly watch parties for all of our Free Thought Library shows. That includes the Atheist Community of Austin and the show Talk Heathen, which I'm also occasionally on. So you can go to the Free Thought Library in person on Sundays in Austin for live viewings of those shows. Doors are open at 11 a.m. every single Sunday in Austin, Texas. So check Google for more information on that. Another way to support us is by sending super chats. You can send them in, and we will be reading those if we get some here through YouTube. If you're in the Austin area, you can also follow us on Meetup to keep up with community events. And last but not least, I need to thank the amazing, awesome, stupendous, fantastic crew that helped make this show happen every single week. There's a crew cam, folks, waving us on. And that
they've been doing a great job.
They have. That lower third camera there is from the Free Thought Library, and you know, it's a good time. Go check it out if you've never been. With that, before I move on, comments, questions, concerns, Coleman, last thoughts.
But let's bring it on.
Let's keep moving on. I agree. Let's talk to John from Canada, who is calling us again. John from Canada, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hi, John.
Dan, how are you?
John, I'm doing good. I believe you talked with Coleman last time Coleman was on, right?
When was that? I don't remember. No offense.
About a month ago?
Yeah, it was about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
What was the topic?
John, you called the show. What do you mean, what was the topic?
I really don't remember. Was it about the origin of the universe? Was that what it was about?
John, I'll be honest. I don't remember a lot of the stuff that you talked to me about, because you have different ideas. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. Let's move on. Let's talk about what you want to talk to us about today, okay?
What's on your mind?
Okay, let's do it. I heard you talking about conspiracy theories. So I want to get something out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
The conspiracy theory that UFOs crashed in 1947,
and
that they're hanging out at Area 51, that's completely bogus.
Okay.
Just putting it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're convinced that Area 51 stuff is BS. I'm on the same page. Why do you think it's BS?
Okay. I want to make something clear. I'm open to the idea of extraterrestrial life, intelligent
Sure.
Extraterrestrial life, but I don't believe for a second that this planet or us that we're so special that aliens will come all the way here and then just fly away. Either aliens wouldn't come here at all, or if they did, they would make their presence known, like that we're here, and they would either work with us or enslave us, but they wouldn't come and then leave. And on top of that, the technology is so advanced that it wouldn't crash. And on top of that, even if it did crash, which it wouldn't, but even if it did, there's no way the United States military could possibly keep it secret. Don't you agree?
Do I agree? I think
good points.
I think I agree with your first point, but for not for the same reasons you gave. So your first point was, we're not special enough for aliens to come here, and that's kind of interesting because as far as we can see, there's not any life around us for a good while, right?
Mhm.
So I think that does kind of make us special. I think that would make us interesting for alien species, if they're out there in that kind of thing. So I don't know why you wouldn't think that, but I do agree that if we're gonna know about extraterrestrials and they have that technology, it's gonna look different than the kind of stuff we've been seeing. It's not gonna be weird, grainy military photos. Like it's gonna be a bit more substantial than what
I
we've
mean,
got.
because of the size of the universe, which is just bigger than the human brain can really grasp, but the universe is just so fucking big,
Yeah.
that and as far as we can see with our most powerful telescopes, no life that we can see, no signs of it. So they would have to be coming from so far away that
Right.
it would completely defy the laws of any physics that we know about to get here, which means that, yes, I totally agree. Their technology, i- totally hypothetical and fictional as it would be so advanced that the idea of them just crashing into the ground in New Mexico, like with that kind of we're talking about them defying the laws of time and space. How do you crash uh, basically a time warp machine? So yeah, I totally agree with you there. If such a technology existed, it would not make a crash in the desert that looked exactly like a balloon.
Mhm.
Okay. But as for saying that the humans were not that special, well, we can't get our act together because even in year 2026, we're fighting war against each other. I don't think aliens would be interested in that. They would only be committed us if we get our act together.
Yeah, but John, we're also, I mean, we study ants. You know what I mean? Like we know about like ant colonies and what they're up to, and like bonobo colonies and like orangutan wars, and we've got all that chronicled because we're just kind of interested in science in general. I don't know why an alien species also wouldn't if they had the same mindset we had, right?
But when did they announce themselves?
We don't announce ourselves to ants,
But
right?
ants are not self-aware. We are.
Well, maybe we're on such a lower level of consciousness that we're not worth addressing. Maybe we couldn't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, to the ants, the ants probably think of themselves as self-aware. We just don't. But
I know.
but yeah,
I just found something. Don't you find it a weird coincidence that you, me, and Dan were all born human and not animals?
I don't
not
know.
not really, because we wouldn't be able to have this conversation otherwise. Like
Right.
there's a survivor
That's
bias there.
precisely
Like
that's my
all
that's
the
my
people
point.
that were
That's
not
my
born
point.
people are not on this chat.
We just said I didn't hear what you just said.
Well, you're working backwards from the end result. The end result of all of the random selection is that we're here, but that's not a coincidence. That's just what happened.
Right.
Like,
John, have you ever heard of an idea called the anthropic principle?
No, never.
Okay, you should go Google that, because there is this idea. You used to be a Christian, right? And remember when folks would be like, "Yes, we know that we're created from God because all of this fine tuning had to happen, right?" So
Oh, I see.
if it wasn't for this fine tuning, none of us could be here having this conversation, right? You're familiar with that rhetoric?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So the anthropic principle is just this idea that says, look, we can't have this conversation because life is, we're having this conversation because life did happen the way that it did. And there couldn't have been another way otherwise, because there'd be no way to observe or address that. Right. It says it in more words than that. But, that's what it's talking about in a nutshell. We can't change the outcome of the existence
yeah.
that we're in. So by that sense, it couldn't be a coincidence because it couldn't be any other way.
Right. If something else had happened, we wouldn't be here. So,
Right.
this is what happened.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you a question. Are there any conspiracy theories that you do adhere to?
There seems like there was a pretty big conspiracy going on Epstein's Island.
Yeah.
Sounds like that guy, his shadow is looming over the whole world. He's dead, but yet he's still haunting us. Amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, to my point that I made earlier about this, right? Like, we know about what happened with Epstein's stuff because what happened? Documentation came out about it. There were trials that came out about it, right? Like,
And there will be more.
yeah, it went through court processes and determined, like, yes, there was a thing going on here, and that's why it's such a big deal, because it is shocking, right? But Epstein's not the only example of big shocking things happen. Look what happened with Enron. Look what happened with every single Silicon Valley startup every other year. I mean, these kinds of things happen, and
The
they're
big
wild.
tobacco conspiracy.
Yeah.
That was real.
Right.
Tobacco.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem, though, is that the framing of it stops being a conspiracy once it goes to these courts and once it comes out as truth, right? We don't think of Enron as traditionally as a conspiracy because we associate conspiracy theories with vague ideas, untrue ideas, unverified ideas. But the truth is, conspiracies do happen, and they happen all the time.
Yeah, it's a class in law. I mean, the conspiracy is a conspiracy to commit a crime is the legal term.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say that. Have a good night. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks, John. Really
Best
appreciate
conversation with you ever, John. Thanks.
That's right. That's right. Oh, John from Canada. What a guy. I'll talk to John more than I'll talk to Greg. Again, I'll tell you that. Because that was not fun. But
yeah, just feel like I need to say again that we do not endorse any of the views of Greg.
No. And never will.
No. And kind of feel bad giving him a platform to say some of that stuff because it's just it needs to be talked about, but I think it needs to be talked about in a way that is sensitive to just the massive harm that it does to people when you blame the world's problems on groups, especially groups that don't have the power to defend themselves against these charges. I mean, bringing up trans people, some of the most marginalized people in the world, and there's plenty of people that are on the wrong end of this sort of blaming groups for bad things happening, and a big thing that when you get into xenophobia, you have things like blaming immigrants for the problems of the country, and again, the facts do not support that. Even if they did, it doesn't give you a license to just attack groups of people because people belong to a group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
But again, the facts do not support it.
Right. Greg was saying terrible things like Jews are responsible for 99% of the evil stuff in history. And the truth is, Jews have been blamed for a lot of evil stuff in history. And that's really a problem. It is this sort of recurring narrative that has happened in history. And of course, Jewish people aren't exclusive to this, but they are a major, major example of a minority group that has been persecuted throughout history. And it's just been shown time and time and again. So anytime Jewish people have shown success in any particular sector, suddenly that becomes a problem. In the same way that anytime a trans person becomes successful in their role, they're going to say, well, they're a DEI hire. They didn't actually earn it, or there's some other narrative that's going on. If you're in a minority, you will never get the credit that you deserve for the accomplishments that you have, because people are always going to go back to these narratives.
Absolutely. So, and the ironic thing, I guess it's ironic, is that blaming the Jews for all of these bad things has led to actual bad things happen that are not being done by the Jews.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't know. You say, and it's important, question to ask. What's the difference between platforming and shooting these ideas down, right? Debunking. I will never, unlike Joe Rogan, I'm never gonna let somebody get away with that bullshit, at least on here. So I can sleep well at night, at least knowing that I can do that. But I do say that for folks who do watch this and want to have these conversations at home, I think it's important that you do, because every day that you don't with these coworkers or friends or family in your life, and they continue to believe this stuff, there's nobody else that's going to stop them or challenge them on this, because these aren't the kinds of polite conversations that people have. But if you do have the opportunity to talk about it and say, hey, here's some other things to think about, right? Here's some ideas that maybe you should consider. You might be able to put a pebble in somebody's shoes to change their mind. As long as, again, a challenge is made and you're not just letting them speak to on the pulpit and say, hey, all this stuff is true, and you should consider it, because we need to consider all sides equally, right?
Right.
But
And
anyway, that's my soapbox.
Sure. And, to that, if you're talking to somebody in your personal life, it's very different than the kinds of conversations we have on this show, because,
Right.
As you said at the beginning of this show, shit on the internet gets pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And conversations get pretty contentious on the internet. But when you're talking to somebody that you care about in your life, you need to approach that conversation very differently. It's not about shaming them. It's not about proving them wrong. It's not about owning them. It's about helping them to see that you have a different point of view, and you can still, support them as a person while challenging, or having a different point of view. I think that's the gentlest way to start, is just saying, well, I have a different point of view, but I'm still your friend. But it has to be baby steps with that sort of thing, because the dance that you want to walk is that you don't want to push that person away, because then they're not going to hear anything that you have to say, and then you're not going to be effective at anything. So you need to be able to push back ever so gently, just a little bit at a time. Because if you alienate them, then you've lost. You're not going to be able to influence them at all.
Yeah, but it's a balance as well, though. I will say that, because I don't think it's up to a Jewish person to defend their right to exist every day, right?
No.
Like I don't think it's up to trans people to defend their rights to exist every day. I don't think you need to engage in conversation like that. I think it's more able-bodied folks like ourselves who like talking to people and and doing this kind of stuff. I do think the onus is on folks like us that can make that happen. But if you do have an opportunity, I think you should go for it. Not your responsibility, though. It's so anyway, nuanced conversation there at the end, which I like. But we are getting towards the end of today's broadcast. I want to thank Coleman for being on today. This has been a great episode of the show. Thanks so much, Coleman, for joining me on this episode of Truth Wanted. If people want to find you and see more of your stuff, where should they go?
Yeah, check it out. YouTube /@ThinkThisThrough channel. Definitely that two-parter I did on Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard and Eric Weinstein. Oh my God, what a that one nearly killed me. So watch it for your viewing enjoyment. And I hope that you enjoy watching me suffer.
Heck yeah. So go check that out if you want to see more of Coleman's stuff. And real quickly, I also want to thank Flabbergasted real quickly for being our backup host for today. Let's see if we can get that beautiful 3-up on the screen. Thanks so much, Flabbergasted. Any thoughts or comments about today's show?
Yeah, jump in.
Oh boy, I don't know if you guys could see my camera while you guys were talking to Greg, but I was losing my mind during that call. And it's the one thought I had about it, right, is that blaming Jewish people for everything is such a Christo-Eurocentric perspective, right? If there was even a modicum of truth to this kind of propagated hatred, it would be a view that would be much more common outside of the Christo-fascist, hate boner, circle jerk worldview that we were just witnessing. It's not even universal within all post-Judaistic Abrahamic faiths. Yeah. It's just this Christo perspective that we're seeing, right? Why is it that China and Japan don't look at Jewish people as their scapegoat for their problems? and their struggles and the evils that they face. Do you think Korea blames the Jewish people for Japan's atrocities during World War II?
Yeah.
No, they don't. It's insanity. It's just the most ridiculous perspective on all of this that only comes from, I think, what I'm going to start calling the Christo-fascist hate boner circle jerk worldview.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, like, we're
Well
the
done.
atheist community of Austin, and obviously, we're not big fans of Christianity. I would never in my life say Christianity is responsible for 99% of the world's problems. That is just not, I mean, you can't work with that, right? Ridiculous. That just means you hate somebody, right?
And if I did see someone do that, I would push back just as hard as I'm pushing back on this right now.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. For sure. Well, thank you for those thoughts, Flabbergasted. Appreciate that. Good stuff. Good stuff. Before we close out tonight's program, I always like to ask my guests for words of wisdom. So, Coleman, you're a man of many wise words, but what's your words of wisdom you want to leave for us tonight?
Folks, don't listen to Joe Rogan. Literally about anything.
Very good, wise. Maybe one of the wisest words that have been spoken on this program. I co-sign on that. Great stuff. Great stuff. Folks, I'm Objectively Dan. This has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.